Videos only happen because of the support and help from our sponsors. Support the companies that support us. Today we're going to ride a brand new KTM Adventure 790 and the Duke 790. Yeah, brand new 790. Don't adjust your set, you've not gone back in time. KTM has released these ones as a budget kind of stepping stone into the 890 range, and we're going to go and send it. We've got 200 miles of tarmac road, winding back lanes, nice country roads, some fast A-road stuff. We're going to put this Duke through its paces and see if being the sort of baby brother has any effect on how much fun it is. Then we're going to jump on the 790 Adventure and have a tear up off-road at the Adventure Sweetland Rally Complex. That's KTM's home of off-road training for adventure bikes in the UK. We'll find some gravel, some puddles, some muds, hopefully somewhere to get stuck. I want to see if less is actually more. You don't need to spend a fortune on a bike, so hopefully something that's a little less money can be just as much fun.
I asked the people at KTM why they built this bike, what's it for, what's the point? And their half joking answer was so that people don't have to buy a Honda. Which was kind of a dig at the fact that where KTM has taken this middleweight road bike sector and made really premium bikes in it, the Duke 890R is okay, it's not a 1000cc or 1200cc bike, but the chassis is pure premium and everything on it is a high spec bike, which is why it's more expensive than some of the other models in the class. But Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha all make cheap middleweight bikes, cheap middleweight capacity naked street bikes, and they're not bad bikes, they're good, pretty good bikes. And I think this is KTM didn't want to water down the main Duke. They didn't want to turn the 890 Duke into a lesser thing by taking spec out of it and making it cheaper. So instead they've got the 790 Duke, which is your budget option, which, yeah, they had it, so why not do it? And the result is a properly enjoyable little bike to ride. Properly enjoyable. So from the 790 Duke yesterday to the 790 Adventure today, this is a chance for a bit of off-road. We have a little play on road already, but we have a little chance of some off-road now, perfectly in time for a bit of rain. Now, where the 790 Duke hasn't changed much from the original 790 Duke, the 790 Adventure has, because where the 890 Adventure's been upgraded and modified, the 790's got those same upgrades. So effectively this is more like an 890 Adventure with the 790 engine and a more basic suspension package. So that's why it's got the newer styling, the heavier crankshaft, a few of the extras like that.
When is less power more fun? When it saves you a couple of grand and puts the same smile on your face. I call that a win. This is a KTM 790 Adventure. We've also been riding the new 790 Duke. Now we'll start out talking about the Duke. The Duke is kind of like the old 790 Duke. There are a few changes, but essentially it's the 790 Duke from 5 years ago or so. Bought out now essentially in response to the other manufacturers making cheap middleweight bikes. Now it's no secret that the 890 Duke R is one of my favourite motorcycles of all time. It is an absolute weapon. It, for me, strikes a perfect balance of weight, power and stupidity without being completely unusable on the road. If I'm going out for a Sunday blast and I'm picking any bike in the world, genuinely 890 Duke's right at the top of my list. I love it. So why would you make a slower, lower spec version? Well, the thing is the 890 Duke is quite expensive in that middleweight sector. And with bikes like the Hornet, Yamaha's MT-07, Suzuki's new 700s as well, those cheaper bikes have kind of taken away from the Duke a little bit, because if you're buying a bike in that middleweight sector, you've got to justify the extra cost of the KTM. KTM's answer was, well, we don't want people buying Hondas, we'll make a cheaper version of the Duke, and I got a lot of time for that. So the 790 Duke retails at £7,999, but right now there's a grand off it as well. So for 7 grand, you're getting a Duke, which, okay, it's not quite as powerful as the 890. Okay, the suspension's a basic spec, but in terms of the size of the smile it puts on your face, it is an absolute bargain. Move over to the 790 Adventure, and we're talking the same sort of thing. The 790 Adventure in base format costs 10 grand. That's not cheap, but it is cheaper than an 890 Adventure, and it gets you 90% of the entertainment you're going to get on the more premium model. Basic forks, so no adjustment on the forks, a basic shock, and obviously the smaller engine. But the difference between the Adventure and the Duke versions of these 790s, the Adventure's taken a lot more of the 890's upgrades. So it's taken the new styling, it's got the heavier crank, so it's very much a 890 with basic suspension and the 790 engine, rather than the Duke, which is kind of the old 790. I've been riding both of them for 2 days around Wales. We've had a fantastic road ride on the Dukes, a little bit of road and then a big chunk of off-road on the Adventures. At the end of the day, I'm left kind of thinking, why would you buy the cheaper version? Why wouldn't you just save up the extra cash, especially with things like PCP deals, and get the better one? If you're going to ride one of these bikes to its limit, particularly the Duke on the road, if you're going to ride it as hard as possible, chuck it around, ride it aggressively, do a couple of track days, then absolutely get the 890, because the more power will make you smile more, and having that better suspension will let you ride a little bit faster, a little bit harder, and certainly on a track day you'll notice it. But if you want a really nice middleweight bike to ride pretty fast on the road, then the 790 is an absolute bargain. At that price, I think it's the most fun thing at that price point, and it doesn't feel like a cheapened down version. It still feels like a pretty premium motorcycle. Flip over to the 790 Adventure. Again, we've ridden it here today, and to be honest, you can do everything on this that I would normally do on an 890. You just have to go a little bit slower. Definitely the suspension on the sort of looser, bigger stones isn't quite so precise as the more premium stuff. So for a nervous rider, you could argue that the premium suspension would help. But again, it comes down to this is a cheaper bike, so it's easier to get into. You haven't got to save up 12, 13 grand, it's 10 grand.
Base model again comes with ABS, traction control, and not much more. Whereas you can always opt in for the quick shifter, opt in for the more advanced slide control, the MSR, and as with all KTM's Huskies gas gases these days, the options come from new, switched on for the first 1500 kilometers or so, and then whichever ones you want to keep, you then pay your money and keep them on there.
The other big point is these are A2 compliant, so 95 horsepower means they can be restricted. So if you're in that sort of awkward restricted license group, then this and the Duke definitely open themselves up to you without going for the full price of the 890. Yes, they're built in China. No, I don't think that makes any difference in terms of the size of the smile they put on your face, and we've hammered the life out of them for 2 days and not have any problems. If you want to try and get into one of these bikes, I think if you've got the money, you pick the 890, but if you're in that slightly cheaper price point or A2 license, genuinely I don't think these are going to reduce how much fun you have. 2 bikes for less money, take your pick. They're a bargain.
Time for playtime.